when I tell people that I am a confident speaker, that I wasn't always a confident. When I tell people that I wasn't always a confident speaker, they always go like, "Oh, well, are you sure?" Because who we see don't look like someone who didn't always do this. And it's true, I wasn't always confident at all, let alone being confident as a speaker. That was something that I really struggled with growing up because, first of all, I am an introvert, and as an introvert, the I just want to be by myself. I just want to think. I want to observe. I want to read. I want to think. I want to do everything that has nothing to do with people. That is what being an introvert kind of does to you. Now, on top of that, I was also terribly shy. I was so shy that when my cousins would visit us at home, I would run into the bedroom and stay there until they left. That was how bad it was. So everything about me was always like be by yourself. I couldn't speak to people. I was always afraid I was going to say the wrong thing. I was going to sound the wrong way. And because of that, I would just hold back. Now, in as much as I am an introvert, and in as much as I was like that, my self-doubt and timidity and low self-esteem, I still had moments, those moments where I went in by myself and I just like being by myself and just thinking. I used to call that fantasy. So I would fantasize about being able to speak to people, to impact people by teaching them. And I remember back when I was little, whenever I saw a child around, I would teach them, whether it was mathematics, English language, just whatever book that was around, or maybe a storybook, I would pick it up and try to teach the children. So in my head, I always saw myself doing that. But like I said, it was a fantasy for me. So I just felt okay because I knew that this wasn't something that I could do, seeing how I was. So I just would leave out that fantasy in my head because that was the closest that I could be that I feel inside of me. Now, this continued even in secondary school, high school, depending on the system that your country uses. In high school, I remembered back then I wanted so much to be in the press club. I don't know why, but I just loved the idea of being in front of people and broadcasting the news. My dad had taken us to a TV station, and I loved that experience. That when I never went into secondary school, I thought, oh, I would want to do this. Now, that was just a thought. That was something that I wanted to do, but I knew that there was no way in heaven and hell I was going to do that. And the reason being the same thing, like I just couldn't imagine myself, or rather, every time I imagine myself being in front of that crowd, all of the students, all of the teachers staring at me, listening to me as I deliver the news, it was just too much. I'll get overwhelmed with fear, with self-doubt, like, how would you sing? What if you don't sound right? What if you make a mistake along the way? And all those thoughts would just make me recline. So even though I eventually joined Press Club, I was a silent Press Club member because I didn't attend the important meetings being days where I knew that our patron would assign someone to give the news on Monday. So weekend meetings like Fridays and Saturdays, I definitely wasn't going to be there. So I was a silent member. Unfortunately for me, one day our patron, it was a Saturday, we were in class because I lived in the boarding house. So we were in class and our teacher, who was the patron of the club, came into our classroom and he pointed directly at me and asked me, "You are in Press Club, right?" Immediately he asked me that question. My mind went into an auto-interpretation mode. And the interpretation he gave to it was, listen, if you say yes to this man, you are definitely going to read the news on Monday because once he has appointed you, you can't say no. So if you say yes that you're a member of Press Club, you would definitely give the news on Monday. And that means that you stand in front of more than 200 students, more than 40, 50 teachers, and give the news. And at the thought of that, what came out of my mouth was, no, sir. And true to how I had thought it, he said, okay, and he left. Now, as a secondary school student, that was okay. It was okay for me to be in the background, for me to hide my brilliance, for me to avoid the spotlight and give up opportunities to use my skills and to do the very thing that I actually really, really wanted to do. It was okay at that. But when it became not okay was when I got into the marketplace. When I got into the marketplace, that was a different ball game. I mean, you could avoid being in the press club and you could avoid not giving the news, but and still end up doing well in your academics. And that was okay because a lot of times that was what you were sent to school to do, to be better and to learn and to most importantly excel in your academics. So you could avoid those things and do well in your academics and it would be okay. But in the marketplace, if you avoid opportunities to share your ideas, that was a different ballgame because one, you wouldn't get recognized for it because you didn't share it, and two, you wouldn't get opportunities to be in leadership or to be a part of a team that actually made things work. And that was me. That was who I wanted to be. I wanted to be part of the people who worked results, who created results, who accomplished the results that drove organizations from one point to another. So it was at that point where I went into the marketplace that I realized that that was going to be a different ballgame. Because at that time, I started that same low self-esteem, the inferiority complex, always thinking that the other people in the room were better than me, and also being a woman in a country, let me not use the country, in a society that says to women that you can be seen but not heard. In a society like that, built up like that, and then coupled up with my personality, my introverted personality, that made things a whole lot worse for me. So I remember back then during meetings when I had an idea to share at those early days, I would tell myself, better not share it because you may sound stupid, your ideas may not be accepted, your colleagues may laugh at you. And as I am in that space, just giving myself all of the reasons I could think of for not speaking up, somebody else will speak up and they will share the exact same thing that I had in my head, the exact same idea. And when they did that, they would be recognized as people who contributed to the growth of the team and the organization as a whole. Two, if it was about a project, they would be appointed to either head the project team or be a part of the project team. Again, relegating me further into the background. And I know sometimes we like to tell ourselves that, oh, it's okay to be in the background. People don't really need to know what you're doing. You just need to do your thing in the background and not fight to be in the spotlight all the time. But I just want you, if anytime you think like that, I just want you to pause and ask yourself this question. Is this really coming from a place of humility, or am I just being afraid and unsure of myself? Am I just doubting my brilliance? Is that what I'm doing? And I can assure you, majority of the time, you are doubting your brilliance. It has nothing to do with being humble and just not fighting for the spotlight and just like doing your thing and letting other people shine and all that. Majority of the time, you will find out that it has to do with the fact that you doubt yourself. You doubt your capacity to thrive in the spotlight. And somewhere in your mind, you're saying to yourself, if I step into that spotlight, people will actually see that I am not all that. And that is why I am on this conference. I want to help you get from that place to the place where you can confidently share your idea. Now, back to my story. At this point in time, where I was already in the marketplace, I continued to have those thoughts. But now, looking back, I can say to you now that it became more than a fantasy. It became more like something inside of me fighting so hard to come out. And I can give it a name now, but at that time I didn't know what it was. But now I can say to you that it was purpose pushing out. And this is something that I have tried so hard to push down. I thought it was fantasy because I didn't understand what it was. But at that moment, I began to feel so strongly that I was meant to teach. I was meant to get on stage and inspire people. Now, I would also state here that my relationship with God also helped me, because I remember that time God began to help me to see it in the light of purpose, not just something that, oh, I would wish to do, or it would have been something nice for me to do, but looking at myself, looking at my personality, it is definitely not something that I can do. But I began to see that as purpose, as something that I am called to do. And I just want you to know that about yourself, that those things, that pull that you feel in your heart, that desire to share your message, to share your experiences, it is not just about you wanting to feel good, or maybe you saw someone on YouTube and you think, oh, it would be nice if I could do that. No, it is so much more than that. This is what you are being called to do, because you were created to do that. And I want to share with you the 3 things that I learned to do. I first of all had to build confidence in myself, and I built confidence in 3 major areas as a foundation that helped me to get to where I am. Where I am right now is where I teach as a business. Like, I literally teach. I teach people how to give presentations that are great and that are inspiring and drive their audience members to act. Sorry about that. Okay, Lisa, I'm pausing so you can find a way to cut this area out. So, because I found out that this was what I am supposed to do. And I was sharing with you that I now teach people as a business. I teach people how to improve their presentation skills. I help people to build confidence. I help people to define their message so that they can take it to their God-assigned audiences. And that is what I do. And if you have told me that this is what I'm going to be doing now, 5 years ago, I would most definitely have scoffed. 5, 10 years ago, I would most definitely have scoffed at you, because I wouldn't have seen that in myself. So what I learned in my journey of confidence there were 3 levels. The first one was I had to build confidence in myself. A lot of things that self-doubt does to you is that it says to you, you are not worthy. You don't deserve it. You and nothing like that. You're nothing like the people who speak. You're nothing like the people who inspire millions. You are nothing like the people who transform the lives of others with their message. So that's what self-doubt does to you. Self-doubt puts you in a position where you have to compare yourself to others, and every time you compare yourself to others, you always fall short. You always fall short of them, and that is what self-doubt does to you. But what you have to begin to do is to intentionally give yourself reasons. You have to provide reasons to yourself as to why you are qualified and are able to take your message to the masses with the goal of transforming your audience members' lives. And how can you do this? the first thing that I would have you do is I want you to look at yourself. And I don't like to tell people that the reason why you have worth is because you have skills or you have talents. No, you have worth because you're human. That's all. If you are a human being, you have worth. So if anybody can do it, you can do it. You can be the one inspiring people. You can be the one inspiring the women in your community. You can be the one inspiring the lives of your colleagues. You can be the one. And this is the time where you say to fear, I've had enough fun with you. Now it's time I go have some fun with my purpose. It's time I go do what I know that I was called and equipped to do. The second thing, because your mind wants evidence, a lot of times self-doubt gives you evidence upon evidence about why you can't. So I want you to also look for evidence about why you can. So when in the past have you accomplished something, especially something that in the beginning you felt some fear in your heart, but then you didn't allow that fear to sit there. You went anyway, or maybe times where situations forced you to go anyway. But at the end of the day, you accomplished something that before you started, you didn't think that you could accomplish. So I wanted to intentionally bring those periods to your consciousness so that you can provide that to your consciousness as evidence of why and why and of why you can. Okay, so do that. The second level of confidence that I built was in my message, because I doubted my message a lot. I doubted the impact that it could make in the lives of people. And I always said to myself, and if I'm being transparent, sometimes I still have that, I still hear that voice somewhere, but I intentionally push it away because I know that it isn't true. Now, this voice often would tell me that, well, I mean, you don't have that much experience than the people you want to teach. You haven't really done much or spent a lot of years in this area, so you are not really qualified to share it, or you don't have in-depth knowledge to share it here. So that voice would say to me, your message isn't that strong, it isn't that powerful, it cannot change anybody's life. And I had to learn to trust in the potency of my message. And that is what you have to learn to do. You have to believe that your message, that message that you have in your heart, that it has potency. It is potent. It can transform the lives of people. It is valid. It can change the way someone does business, that will bring them results, positive results that they can be proud of. You have to trust your message. You don't have to sound like everybody else. You don't have to speak like everybody else. And your experiences sure don't have to be like everyone else's. Yours are just unique to you. You have lived it, you have experienced it, you have done it in the past, and it has worked for you. You can get research that backs it up, you can get statistics that back it up, you can share your stories, but I want you to know that your message is potent. When you have this understanding, the way that you share it changes. There is something different. There is a new level of energy that you bring when you share your message on a stage, when you believe it, when you believe that it actually works. So that is the second level of confidence that you have to build to go from fears to fierce on stage. The third level of confidence that I built was confidence in my audience. And this also was something that I had to intentionally do, because a lot of times I felt, well, these people wouldn't really want to listen to me. And I'm going to share something with you. If you pay attention, you know that my voice kind of sounds, I often joke that it sounds like a mosquito. I often joke that my voice sounds like that, and I would often, and when, until I learned this, I would often belittle myself because of how that my voice sounds. And that used to keep me back a little bit, and I would feel small, I would feel too young, because then the people that I felt called to seemed older than me, or they were always often older than me, or more financially successful than I was. And I would say to myself, these people would pay attention to me. These people wouldn't want to hear me. If they had a reason to get someone to help them with their presentation skills, it most definitely isn't going to be you, Buife. So those were some of the thoughts that I used to, some of the things I used to say to myself. And I had to consciously learn to know that my audience will want to listen to me. And this is what I learned. I learned that every speaker has a God assigned audience. I don't have to speak to everybody, but I know that God has assigned me to a particular group of persons. Now, these particular group of persons also know it. So when they hear me, they are going to feel a level of resonation to what I am saying, and they will want to pay attention, because the way God has set it up is that He has created those people, He has set these people aside for me, and He has set me aside for these people. So I had to trust that. I had to trust that when I share my message with my God assigned audience, that they would have the willingness and the capacity to apply the lessons that I share with them to their lives, their businesses, their relationships, their marriages, their finances, wherever they see that happening, they see those lessons working for them, they would have the willingness and the capacity to apply the lessons in those areas and get the results that would further prove that my message is potent. And it was when I built this confidence, when I built this level of confidence in my audience, that every time I go on stage, I care about the people who would listen to me. And I do my best to explain things and to break things down in a way that would help them. It's usually not about bouncing around the stage. Remember, I'm still an introvert, so a lot of times I have to tell myself, listen, focus on your strengths and not on what you consider to be your weakness, because that's very important. What you consider to be a weakness and what is actually a weakness might be different. So you may want to look at yourself and things that you call weaknesses, and ask yourself the question: is this really a weakness, or are these just areas that I am currently afraid of exploring? So as when I go on stage, I have to do that. I have to trust that the people seated there want to hear me speak, and I have to trust that they are going to learn something from me. And most importantly, I have to trust that they are willing and they have the capacity to go out and use the things that I've taught them. And should in case they come to a place where they find it difficult to apply what I've taught them, I also trust that they would have the courage to come back to me and say, okay, Buife, I tried to use this, but I got stuck here and there, and I think I need your help more. I trust that, and it makes a whole lot of difference for me. So I would encourage you, if you have been feeling that tug in your stomach, you've been calling it fantasy, you've been calling it a wish, you wish you could speak on stage, you wish you could inspire, you wish you could be on a TED talk, you just wish, but you don't see yourself as someone who is worthy or who is capable of doing that. I want you to ask yourself certain questions. one of the questions I want you to ask yourself is, why do I feel like I can't do this? Why do I feel unworthy? Why do I doubt my ability to do this? What am I saying to myself? And I want you to note those things down. Those are the evidences that you have of why you can't. And then you now ask yourself, what are my evidences that I can? And you put that down. I also want you to do the second thing, which is, what is my message? How have I seen this message work out in my own life, in the lives of the people that I've studied, in the lives of the people that I've read their stories and read their biographies and all that? How has it played out? And then regarding your audience members, you can do this. Have 2 or 3 people that you get, 2 to 5 people that you get, and you take them through the lessons in your message, and then ask them to use what you have shared with them. It could be on a webinar, it could be on a group coaching, it could be on a Facebook group, and you just come up and share something, and then ask people to give you feedback. As much as possible, gather evidences that say to you, you are qualified, you are worthy, and your God-assigned audiences are waiting for you to unlock the power of your voice. If you would want to work with me in defining what your message is and creating a framework that makes it easy for you to share with your audience, I am totally available for you. And you can always reach out to me via my website, buifenomeh.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. I am very active on any of those platforms, and we can have a chat. All right, but I want you to know that your voice is important, and those ideas in your head cannot be brought out by anybody else. You can't be giving voice to by anybody else but yourself. So go ahead and unlock your voice and let the world hear your message, because you are worthy, and your voice is worthy to be heard. Thank you.